lobbyists at the COP.
Yeah.
I want to thank all of you for doing a really hard work here of advancing solutions, representing your countries and regions and communities at COP, fighting for a phase out of fossil fuels, for financial reform, and for renewable energy and efficiency and climate justice. All bring. So I want to just say one more time, give yourselves a round of applause. So before I introduce the Vice President, who needs no introduction, I want to just ask all of you to do one more thing on behalf of the climate, which we're asking everyone, all our climate reality leaders and others, to wear this pin that says, I am not a fossil fuel lobbyist.
I want to say is thank you for being here. We are at a critical moment in our struggle to solve the climate crisis. Everybody knows that. This is a very unusual COP. But we are making some progress. Sometimes it's hard to see it. But the fossil fuel industry, in my opinion, made a big mistake when they thought they could get away with having the president of this COP named as the CEO of one of the largest and by many measures one of the least responsible fossil fuel companies in the world. According to the press, conducting meetings around the world on COP28 and with talking points about how to sell more oil and gas. Planning, according to all the reports, and this is, they don't deny it, a massive expansion of the production of both oil and gas, timed, courtesy of the advice from their PR firm, to begin immediately when the final gavel comes down at the end of COP28. Now, I want you to think about this for a minute. He's a nice guy, he's a very smart guy, I've known him for years, but this is the most brazen conflict of interest in the history of climate negotiations. And if they thought we were not going to notice, they were badly mistaken. And he was quoted, my friend Mary Robinson did a webinar with him last week and just reported in the press yesterday where she put him under pressure, and Mary Robinson, former president of Ireland, she can do that if she puts her mind to it, and she often does. And he came off questioning the climate science. And I feel kind of badly for him, really, because you know, this absurd masquerade from the moment it started was bound to result in his preposterous disguise no longer concealing the true plans to use the COP process and the lead up to it anyway for selling more fossil fuels. But here's why I think it's good news. Because they went too far and they gave us an opportunity to communicate around the world that the fossil fuel industry has been trying to capture this whole COP process and control it. They went too far, they revealed themselves, and we're going to take advantage of it by using this to wake people up more. We've got to phase out fossil fuels. This time, I don't have to think about it. I've been saying to people, there is a very simple test of whether or not COP28 is a success or a failure. If it ends with a global agreement to phase out fossil fuels, it is a success. Yeah. If that doesn't happen, and of course the deck is stacked against it, but we're all working to make sure it does, but if it doesn't happen, it is a failure. We know what the stakes are, and if the presidency of this COP wants a success, that's what they're going to have to do. And by the way, and what I mean is phase out fossil fuels. The climate crisis is a fossil fuel crisis. Yes. Yeah. And in order to solve the climate crisis, we've got to phase out fossil fuels. It's not more complicated than that. And if we do, you all know this, but the scientists are now agreed, wonderfully, that the wonderful news is that the scientists are all agreed now that what the science tells us is when we get to true net zero, the temperatures on Earth will stop going up. It's like flipping a switch. We can give young people around the world hope for their future again. And if we stay at true net zero, the scientists tell us that in as little as 25 to 30 years, half of all the man-made global warming pollution will have fallen out of the atmosphere. So in other words, we have the ability as human beings from every nation, from every region, from every territory, with every language, with every background, every faith, tradition, every orientation, every race, every ethnicity, we have the ability to come together and make a decision on a species-wide basis. We're going to save our future by phasing out fossil fuels. If we don't get it at the end of this COP, if this one turns out to be a failure, I'm not saying it will be, but they're going to have to go a ways to make it a success. But this will be the beginning of an all-out push worldwide to get the phase out of fossil fuels. And if we don't get it this year, we'll get it next year, but we're going to get it. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited. When I go around, and Phyllis made reference to this, and I'm going to repeat something that she said, because I have the same experience, Phyllis. When I walk around the green zone and the blue zone and the hallways, when I see those green rings and I see the numbers of people that are here from Climate Reality, it really lifts my heart. It really does. And when other people see all these green rings and hear your advocacy, they know they have got to push harder for a phase out of fossil fuels. And I'm going to close by thanking you again, and I'm going to close with words you've heard me say before, but I mean these words with all my heart. If you ever doubt that we as human beings have the political will to do what's necessary to save humanity's future, remember that political will is a renewable resource. Thank you for watching.
Ich freue mich hier mit CEO Phyllis zu sein von den Climate Reality Leader, unsere Familie noch größer zu machen.
The Climate Reality Project, and of course we're welcoming everyone to our trainings to become a Climate Reality Leader. We're having our first training next year in New York City and our second training in Rome. So we welcome everyone to become a Climate Reality Leader.